Do you have a Halloween costume picked out yet?
I feel like 50% of the questions I've been asked today were just to get a reaction.
Like what?
I don't know. There's been a lot of throwaway questions.
Throwaway?
Yeah, like questions that you don't answer, you just throw them away.
Oh, like how are you? Like that's a throwaway question?
That's a throwaway question, yeah.
Okay. Because no, we don't. I really don't care.
This is Byron Lazine and Nicole White, and you are tuned in to episode 44 of The Real Word.
Oh, I thought it was 43.
No.
Nope.
It's 44.
Cool.
We've got, for the main topic, a question. We really appreciate actually, it was a comment with a question in the comment. So David Reibstein. I think that's how you do it.
I don't know.
R-E-I-B Steen?
Reeb?
Stein? Reibstein?
Reeb?
David, thank you for the comment.
He's like our first racketeer.
He's not the first racketeer. We've had questions, but
no, not for. This is the first one.
This is a great one.
Yeah. All right. Maybe not the first one, but
definitely not the first one.
The first time we've named you a racketeer. How about that?
We're gonna name all the questions and commenters racketeers or racketers.
Racketeer.
Racketeer.
Racketer. Is that even a word?
Racketeers.
It's like.
So
Racketeer?
David, and we'll link up the article. There's an Inman article where the Redfin CEO, Glenn Kelman, says there's too much money in real estate, and that led David to ask, is there too much money in the commissions being paid? What do you think about that? So, I mean, in his point, and we can actually, in the comments, we can put his whole, we can repost his comment in this description if we want. I've got it here for you guys.
Well, we sort of touched on it a little bit last week.
Yeah,
we
he gets
keep
into
on
the
talking
discount
about
brokers.
Right. We keep talking about iBuyers. We talked last week about that company. Oh gosh, what state was that company in last week? We're there now. Yeah. Watching TV?
No, go ahead.
You're watching
Keep
TV.
Keep going.
Where there is that brokerage that is now offering out sort of that link out for an immediate offer, right? So I feel like all of this sort of like work. Remember, hello, are you here?
I'm listening. I'm listening.
Wow.
Huh?
I remember
what we talked about last week, but what do you think about his specific question? Is there too much money in the commissions?
So again, I think that it's very interesting because we were sort of touching on this conversation last week.
Got that part.
I you know what?
You're not going to quit on me.
That's all.
This is what happens. Can't frustrate Nicole. What do you think? You don't think there's too much commission when you get a 6 or a 5?
But again, in this, he goes over, because you and I started off camera discussing salaried agents because he does bring up salary. He does mention the fact that obviously the more qualified agents or agents that have been in a little longer would never want to go on salary because.
He's saying, would a new agent want a guaranteed $75,000 salary if they didn't have to prospect, if they didn't have to market, if the leads were given to them on silver platter and they literally just had to go through the transaction? But to me, why would you pay an agent $75,000 when you can hire a transaction coordinator for probably half that amount,
right?
And they can just handle the transaction. Because if you're just handing somebody the lead,
well, but they can't unless they're licensed. I mean, there's plenty.
RTC's licensed.
I'm just saying that they'd have to be licensed because they can't actually really do anything real estate related if not.
My point is, if you're going to give them everything on the silver platter, the marketing's done, the lead is generated, they like the house, they're going to do the deal. Then why wouldn't you just pay them as a TC?
Yeah, well, I guess it depends on what people are including in those roles, like
then you
showings,
maybe bonus out on closings,
or like I don't, who knows? But when
you break it down, everything that's going out, I don't see how the level of service that like we offer, for example, you can get that down into a discount brokerage model. Unless you did just go, okay, we're going to just go heavy on hiring transaction coordinators.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially now with where the market is going, I mean,
and making things
to
very
produce
digital.
like video content is like not cheap. You know, now it's almost, in my mind, a requirement to have professional photography.
100%.
Where I feel like it's all going in the opposite direction, because forever agents were getting paid the same amount. I mean, if we go back even to Greg Hagan, like the day of the book, I mean, you literally didn't have to do any. I mean, you weren't even taking photos if you didn't have a camera at your home.
Yeah.
Like, and to think that now it needs to be like pushed more, even though we're offering more. I mean, the whole thing, I think that's a little bit of a racket. I don't think that there's much in there. I do think that there's probably people being overpaid or overcharged if they're not doing anything. And so I get that. I mean, I get the argument of people just like putting things on MLS. I encounter it all the time from expireds, like, oh no, my agent didn't believe in social media. And you're like, and that's why you're still sitting here. And you feel bad because they've now lost this huge chunk of like, of days on market that like you just can't ever get back for them.
If you're getting the type of service that is put the house on the MLS, take some photos, the MLS feeds over to Zillow, and that's it, then then yes, David, there's too much money in the commissions. But if you're getting an over-the-top marketing plan, a transaction coordinator a transaction and a listing coordinator that's going to connect with the client, and they're getting 2, 3, 4 people to support their transaction all the way through, then there may be too little money in commissions, right?
For sure. Yeah.
It's all comes down to the value exchange, and agents need to keep that in mind. The discount brokers that are going to come in and take your business, they're going to take the business of those that aren't investing back into their listings, that are just hoping and posting on and maybe they're in a great market and maybe they're getting lucky right now, but they're just waiting for the sale to happen. Those are the agents that are super vulnerable. Those are the agents that are going to just basically going to get squeezed out of the business because, if I'm a consumer and I can pay you $6 and all you're doing is literally posting the listing on the MLS, or I can pay a discount brokerage and they're actually going to do maybe professional photos and a floor plan and maybe a Matterport.
I guess the thing that I have a really hard time, because there's been a few times that I've been on listings and people have mentioned discount brokerages that are willing to sort of list it for, I think I've even heard, and I'm like 3% or something crazy, where I'm not even, I mean, I don't know how they're even able to do their job, let alone offer out a co-broke. So, and unfortunately in this business, there's lots of buyer's agents that are like sort of like manipulating their buyers depending on like what's being offered out to. So like even as a listing, like you're doing yourself a disservice by going that low, because then what's the incentive on the other end to get somebody into your home? It's unfair and it's unfortunate, and like we hope it's not happening, but we know that it is.
I was on a listing appointment the end of the week last week, and the guy had tried it for sale by owner for a little bit, and he's like, listen, I figured out that that's clearly not the path. He's like, agents won't even show my property. So
well, because you know, who wants to deal with the homeowner,
right?
In all honesty, I mean, and I'm sure as soon as you put that thing online, you'll probably get so many showings. He's like, where were all these people 3 weeks ago? I mean, it's unfortunate, and again, I hate to say that actually happens, but it does.
Definitely does.
I mean, it certainly does.
Racket number 1.
On to it.
All right.
Woo-hoo.
Tax deductions for the realtor. You can't deduct the ball game, but you can possibly maybe deduct the beer.
I mean, who needs the ball game then?
Is it a racket that the I and the R and the S will not let you deduct events anymore with the new tax plan?
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my brain around all of it, because I feel like a lot of our, especially in sales, a lot of our networking and business is happening at events, or you're invited to events, or just the amount of like HBRA events that like I feel like we're like dishing out money. A lot of events in real estate that like you're supposed to go, because like you're networking and you're meeting new people, and you know I
still don't have clarity on if I do a mega open house. I should say, back up. I have had clarity that is an event that's
like marketing. That would be marketing.
You can write off, but you can't write off, okay,
let's go to lunch.
You know, I'm going to take client Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Let me take you guys out to this event. We're going to talk about, you know, the project of listing your big waterfront home, and we're going to do that at the event and whatever.
Right.
So the Wall Street Journal reports that the IRS is working on guidance that would clarify the deductibility of expenses for client meals under the new tax law. And what they're saying is the guidance is expected to be that the cost of business meals will be 50% deductible, even when those meals are purchased at an event. So
you don't get to write off the event, but you get to write off the meal.
50%.
Yeah.
Now, when you write these meals off, as it was in the past, you can't write off the tip.
Right.
You can't write off the taxes that you get charged, obviously, on it. It's just a 50% rule on those meals. I think
I'll skip the event and just drink the beer.
Just drink beer?
Yeah.
Hey, we'll just get the beer.
Come on over. Beer here. Yeah.
I mean,
tailgate outside the event and then just enjoy.
I know for sure when I sat down with my accountant, everyone was pumping up this new tax plan. I'm like, is there going to be benefits? He's like, really, your industry as a real estate agent, as a service industry, you got a little bit squeezed more than most businesses because there were some things you could do. And they even used the word in this article, and we'll link it up. They used the word gray area, and we're not positive until there's more clarity if some of these write-offs you've done in the past are in the gray area or not.
Right. They are in the gray area.
A lot of my write-offs could be
Yeah.
potentially gray.
Yeah.
All right, racket number 2. Indie brokerages are facing a very, very difficult time.
Things are happening in California.
Yeah.
Things are happening.
So the company here, Pacific Union, agreed to sell to Compass this August. Pacific Union, by the way.
Huge. Billions.
How much do they do in sales? Approximately $18 billion in closings this year. That puts them...
That's above Compass.
That puts them in the top 10 in closed transactions in the country.
For sure.
In closed volumes, rather.
Yeah. So they sold off, and then not in this article, but I found another article, though, too, that there's 2 other indie companies in the San Francisco area, too, that are now merging so that they don't have to sell off into Compass, or Compass won't buy them out.
And we've talked about it on the show plenty of times.
Holy
huge
moly.
M&A, in the last couple of years. Do you think for an indie brokerage, because here's where it's a little bit contradictory.
Yeah.
Is people are like, real estate's hyper local, it's super local, it's in your market, know your market inside and out. But on the flip, you're seeing these indie brokerages or boutique brokerages or smaller brokers or one office brokers sell out to the competition. So why, if real estate is super local, are a lot of these indie brokerages selling right now, or boutique brokerages?
So it's interesting because I feel it. So I wasn't necessarily in the industry in 2000, but I remember there was sort of that big shift in 2002, and all of a sudden things were turning to like the internet, and people just didn't have the money or expertise to sort of invest in, because at that time the internet was like, could you afford to build out, sort of that platform yourself? I mean, so I feel like it's sort of happening again now. Like, even though there's $18 billion that this company has in sales, they're saying that they just don't have enough in order to compete over the next 4 years.
They're in the top, but Pacific's,
Did you read it?
$18
That's
billion.
what it said. That's what
they're
he
in the
was
top
saying.
10
So
in closed
they're
volume.
being super realistic. Maybe they're just a little tired too. Maybe they're like, let's just hand them off. What are we doing? We're Instagramming now?
No, I want to look at their Instagram feed, Pacific Union, because what I see a lot of these indie brokerages, or on a smaller scale, the boutique brokerages locally, the reason that ultimately they have to sell out to a bigger
because the
competitor,
owner is probably going to be retiring. We see that locally around here, and like if they go, like there's nothing
but
else below
more
them.
importantly,
That's $18 billion.
More importantly, they didn't
that.
build a significant enough brand. Even though locally they're well known, they didn't build a brand that will live past that rainmaker if the broker is still
billion?
selling.
There's more
No,
than
that's
one
why
rainmaker.
that's why I want to look up Pacific, because I'm like, they must have a really strong brand on the West Coast.
Yeah.
I've certainly read about them in the Swan Poll reports and all this stuff. I haven't seen this brand that is certainly reaching me here on the East Coast, but I was interested, and I will look it up after the show to see what their brand looks like.
Yeah.
I do believe, on a smaller level, this is a big deal, but on a smaller level, if you're like most of America, and there's this one shop in your market that's the small boutique, and then there's all the normal names that you hear of. I think it's really hard for that small shop, if they don't have a full-fledged marketing team in-house, if they're not really doing a lot of local content, but really engaging with the community on that content and getting out there like feet on the ground in the community type of stuff. I think it's going to be very difficult to compete with the bigger companies. One of the reasons being, and this ties into our third racket really nicely, is everything is more expensive right now.
Right.
So like it's more expensive. If you want to invest your money into big real estate projects, it's more expensive because everything's gone up. If you want to invest your money into the stock market, it's gone up. Everything has gone up. And so what's going to end up happening as everything goes up is people are going to be able, because everything's more expensive, people afford a little bit less on their home.
Right.
When they start to afford a little bit less on their home and sellers don't have as easy of a time selling as they have the last 5, 6, 7 years. And I know not here locally, but nationally.
Yep.
What you're going to see is they're going to reach out to brokers and agents that they think can get a wider reach.
Right.
And naturally, these bigger companies that have tons of offices are going to be perceived as having a wider reach, getting a buyer from outside the area to come in. Of course,
they just think that they're a bigger beast.
Yeah, so they're going to get more, I think, over the next 5, 6, 7 years. I think the bigger companies get bigger, the ones that are operating, that aren't losing sight of things like iBuyer and taking these features and implementing.
Well, I mean,
like Reology just did it.
Yeah, I mean, they're just doing an iBuyer too. It's just the whole thing is things are happening.
Right? So I don't know. I do think it is going to be harder for the indie buyer. I think I agree with this. This isn't a racket. It's a scary time if I'm an indie, not buyer, broker.
Well, especially if you're seeing an $18 billion like.
They're independent. They're private, but they're certainly not a little small shop. All right, racket number 3. Mortgage rates go to a 7-year high after the Fed hike of last week. Is it a racket to think that over the next, we'll call it 12 months, prices don't decrease because of the increase in the mortgage rate?
I have something in my eye. Just because I've been trying really hard not to look all weird, like flicking at it. But anyway, I do think it has a direct effect on prices. If anything, it definitely has an effect on what buyers can afford. I was just even out this past weekend. I've got some move-up buyers. Their current home is like I think their interest rate is 3.75. Obviously, we're creeping up to 5%. So those are things that they're taking into consideration. They do need to sell. They do need to buy. So inevitably, the transaction is going to occur because they need to go larger. But obviously, they're now, feeling like, it's going to be a little bit more difficult of a move, or maybe not. The house won't be. They won't be able to afford quite as much now because of the difference there. Yeah, so
it's not a racket.
It's very interesting.
100% prices are going to stabilize over the next few years or go down.
Yeah.
30-year fixed mortgage rate jumped to 4.72%, up from 4.65. The 15-year averaged 4.16, with an average 0.5% rising from last week's 4.11%. I am hearing from a lot of people right now, geez, everything on the market is just way overpriced. It's just way overpriced. For sure, people in more robust markets than ours are saying the same thing. And if buyers continue to feel that way, well, now if they can afford less on their mortgage,
right.
And oh, by the way, the town that we're sitting in right now, while we shoot this from this office location here, the first selectman says, he said it, publicly in some type of article, and then I reached out to him personally. He said 100% in this town, that's not every town, obviously.
The mill?
But this town, taxes are going up.
Yeah.
So if you're now in a town, this town here has a top 20 high school in Connecticut, but it's always been a really attractive town because taxes weren't too bad.
Right.
But now they're putting in $50 million into the school system. Taxes are going to jump significantly. Mm-hmm. Taxes jump, interest rates jump. This is a town I can see for sure prices going down in.
Right. Yeah. Or, again, people are just having to sit still even longer.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we've seen in Connecticut, a lot of people are just having to sit still because they can't make any move. And now they're going to have to probably sit still even longer now because they can't afford to go, or their prices still haven't come up. We're going to, unfortunately, we'll continue to see. Because I even have some folks that are like, oh, well, we're also really close to like a hospital here too, so we get a lot of doctors, and obviously like debt to income plays a little bit of a role there too because of like the amount of money that they take out in student loans. So there are some people that are just hoping like, hey, by next year, but then it's like, well, maybe what you would have saved by sort of paying down your loans, your rate. I mean, it's just there's so many variables.
Yeah, they're going to get it as close to 5% in 2019 as they possibly can if the economy is feeling confident when we come out of this winter in November and so on. If they're feeling confident still in January, no doubt in my mind that the Fed tries to get it as close to 5. Hopefully they don't put a 5 in front of it. Hopefully it's like 4.99 or something, because that'll just make buyers feel a little bit better because you got a 4 in front. But yeah, I think the interest rates are going to continue to rise, and it's not a racket to think that prices come down because of that.
Yeah.
So get it in now. Get your money in while it's good if you're a serious buyer and you have a reason to buy, right?
Sure. Yeah.
If you guys have a comment, please post them in YouTube or on Facebook or on IG.
That was a fun one this week.
Wherever you're seeing this in the comments. And certainly if you have a question, put it right in the comments. And like we did with David's question, we will address it. And if you haven't already, hit the like or the subscribe or the follow wherever you're seeing real word.
You're like one of those.
Do it all.
Like
the like.
Those people.
The
like
hearts.
Subscribe. Like
the subscribes. The dislikes.
The dislike. We went over dislikes last time. We don't want dislikes.
All right. Have a good week, guys.
Bye, guys.
Keep it real.